This hour of the Costa Report is brought to you by IBM. Big data at the speed of business.
Welcome to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and thank you for joining me for another 2 hours of Straight Talk Radio. I want to welcome members of our armed forces who are joining us over the internet today, especially those of you who are serving our country abroad. Thank you for being with us again. This week, we're going to step away from global politics and economics, the environment, technology, and emerging social trends for just a moment to talk about a problem for which we have a 100% indisputable cure. In a few minutes, internationally acclaimed violin virtuoso and humanitarian Itzhak Perlman will be with us to talk about just how far we have come and how close we are to making medical history. We've succeeded in eliminating 99% of the incidences of polio around the world. But in many ways, this success may have produced a false and dangerous sense of comfort. Will we push forward and eradicate the threat of polio once and for all? Or will we leave the door cracked open just wide enough for the next epidemic? What a shame it'd be to come so close and not go that additional 1%. But before Mr. Perlman joins us, as is my custom each week, let me tell you a little about his background. Itzhak Perlman was born in Tel Aviv, Israel. When he was just 2.5 years old, he could already emulate the pitch-perfect opera he heard over the radio, and by the time he turned 3, he was asking for his first violin. Shortly afterwards, Perlman was struck with polio, which paralyzed his legs. He was fitted with heavy braces and used crutches to walk. But rather than defeat him, this tragic affliction only served to deepen his commitment to and love of the violin. It was this devotion which landed Perlman in the acclaimed Julliard Academy in Tel Aviv, where the young prodigy was first discovered. And in 1958, Perlman was chosen to represent Israel in Ed Sullivan's Caravan of the Stars, and that marked the beginning of his esteemed public career. Perlman moved with his mother to New York to study at the Julliard School of Music, where his talent and his imagination were prized. Soon his unorthodox technique elevated him to a stature achieved by few musicians. He has been the recipient of more music awards than we have time to name today, and been responsible for elevating music scores such as Schindler's List and Memoirs of a Geisha, catapulting them into haunting, award-winning compositions. In addition to playing at the White House, for the Queen of England and audiences all around the world, conducting world-class orchestras, taking time to teach young musicians, and recording best-selling classics, Mr. Perlman acts as an official ambassador for the This Close battle to permanently eradicate polio. And today we're going to learn why he joined this important mission. It's my pleasure to welcome to the program violin virtuoso, conductor, teacher, and humanitarian, Mr. Itzhak Perlman. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Perlman.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Just because people are familiar with the word polio, I don't want to assume that everyone understands what polio is, because after all, we've eradicated 99% of the cases worldwide. So news outlets don't have much reason to pay attention to the disease. So let me open today's program by asking you to explain what polio is and how children contract it.
Well, polio is a virus that attacks young kids, and usually attacks limbs, like legs, sometimes arms, and so on. And it can be contracted very easily. It's contagious just by, going together with somebody that has it and so on. I don't actually know when I contracted polio when I was like 3.5 or 4, how it happened, but I do know that I used to go to kindergarten, and one day I was not able to walk. And so but that was during the epidemic in 1948 in Israel. Mm-hmm. And so on. So,
were there other children in your particular kindergarten that were afflicted?
Probably. I did not know that. Obviously, I I was too busy being sick. I was I was in the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks, and they did several things at that time that was before the vaccine.
Yes.
Of course. And so they did things like spinal taps to see what was happening and so on and so forth. And I didn't really remember much. All I remember
and
was
these were very painful procedures.
Well, I was really out of it. Mm-hmm. I just remember very vaguely seeing a window in my hospital room with the sunshine in the morning and setting up at night for several days. And then what happened was that then they took me home, and my new life started. And the new life was basically no more playing, on my scooter, my little scooter that I used to have, and running around. But the new life consisted of being fitted for leg braces and crutches, and it started. But you mentioned the fact that despite of all of that, I was I continued to strive to what I wanted to do, which was music. A lot of it had to do with my parents, really, because as young kids, they can adjust to everything very, very easily. It's not like getting polio at the age of 20 or 25.
Yes.
Because when you have a life that you're used to, you're a teenager and you go to school and so on, and all of a sudden it attacks you. That's very, very difficult. But when I was a kid, I was 3.5, 4 years old. Not much of a regular life experience. I had just quite a couple of years. So this was one of those things where I had to do something different. I had to switch gears, and that's what happened. And of course the music again, that had to do with the fact that my legs were affected by polio, not my arms. Then it did not leave any reason not to continue with what I wanted to do, which was play the violin. So that's what happened.
And you, as you point out, your parents played a big role in your optimism.
They're absolutely the attitude. I mean, the attitude was, it was not. There was never a question of, oh, poor boy, what are we going to do about it, so on and so forth. The question was to look for the future and to look, what are we going to do? Well, he is interested in music. My talent, or whatever promise I showed before, did not change. And so what they did for me was we moved to a neighborhood where school was about a block away, so I could actually walk to school every day, which I did, and then, but of course, the thing that was unusual about me, so it was not so much the fact that I had to walk with crutches and leg braces, but the fact that I had to practice 3 hours every day. And, my friends, that's what they thought was weird about me. Not so much that the fact that I needed leg braces, but the fact that, my God, after school he actually sits down and starts to practice scales. My God, that's silly, crazy. But that's what it was.
Well, I think that it makes a big difference for any child that your parents set the tone for your optimism, for your hopefulness in life, and certainly when you're met with an unearned challenge such as polio, it's their attitude in helping you to assess the assets that you do have, and not focusing on those that might limit you in any way. And certainly, you had the benefit of those parents, which played a huge role.
Absolutely, and my life as a child was otherwise normal. Obviously, I was not on the track team. As a matter of fact, that was when I got a little bit of time also I could practice.
Very good. Very good. Well, we have to take our first scheduled break, and when we come back, we're going to learn about our success in eradicating polio worldwide. You're listening to the Costa Report. Every day our world gets more complicated. Not only is new information coming at us faster than we can manage, new regulations, technology, and the effects of globalization have made it much more difficult to succeed. That's why I wrote The Watchman's Rattle, a book that, for the first time, explains how complexity makes it hard to separate facts from fiction, and eventually causes us to make important decisions based on unproven beliefs. And not just us, our leaders also fall prey to this phenomena. But here's the good news. Once you know the symptoms to watch for, you can safeguard against them. So please, go to RebeccaCosta.com, that's RebeccaCosta.com, and order your copy of The Watchman's Rattle. It only takes a few minutes and the shipping is free. That's RebeccaCosta.com. Do it now. You'll be glad you did.
Did you know that every day we create 2.5 quintillion bytes of data, and that 90% of the data in the world today has been created in the last 2 years alone? This data comes from everywhere, and it affects everyone. This data is big data. Big data is all data, and it's more than simply a matter of size. Big data represents an opportunity to uncover new insights, make your business more agile, and answer questions that were previously beyond your reach. IBM's Big Data platform uses sophisticated technologies and patented advanced analytics designed to complement your existing information infrastructure. The IBM Big Data platform allows you to get started quickly today and expand to address more complex problems tomorrow. It doesn't matter where you start, it matters that you start. Find out how IBM can help you turn big data into a competitive advantage by visiting ibm.com/bigdata today.
Prices are for base buildings only and may not be available in some areas. This is an alert. If your business or church is building this year, you're about to pay more than you should. This could mean thousands of dollars more for your office, retail space, church, or warehouse. So call General Steel now for the quality and the price in a pre-engineered steel building that you just can't beat. That's right, General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How much can you save? How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $35,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first. Call 800-98-STEEL today and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. Don't let rising steel prices put your project in jeopardy. Call now to lock in your price for 3 months. Call 800-98-STEEL. That's 800-98-STEEL. Don't spend thousands more than you should. Call 800-987-8335.
Hi, I'm Pamela Fugit-Hetrick, the host of Money Moves. Cash flows and money moves, but do you find money moving out of your wallet faster than it comes in? Do you wish you had a personal money manager? Do your best Dirty Harry imitation.
You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Go ahead. Make my day.
Pretend that your finger is your gun. Quick draw, aim, point, and straight ahead. Notice that one finger is pointing out, but you have at least 3 pointing back at you. You're the best person to manage your own money. To get the tools you need for the job, listen to Money Moves Thursday night from 7 to 8 p.m. As your host, I promise that each week, Money Moves will leave you with some tips and tools to help you manage your own money. Thursday nights, 7 p.m. for Money Moves. Remember, that's Thursday nights, 7 p.m. for Money Moves.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and my guest today is violin virtuoso and advocate for the eradication of polio, Mr. Itzhak Perlman. And before the break, you were sharing your personal story and how polio did very little to stand in the way of your love and your pursuit of music. Now, looking at the big picture for just a moment, in 1988, we were looking at 1,000 cases of polio a day in 125 countries. And today we're down to 400 cases a year. Is that right?
Something like that. Maybe even less. But what is interesting about it and a little bit concerning is that even one case can restart the whole cycle. And that's why it is so important to fight for total eradication of polio with 0 cases. And all of that has to do with a kind of infrastructure when it comes to vaccination. And, if you got it all set up with vaccination, then we are home free. So that's why this particular disease is misleading when it comes to the numbers. My God, so many people, and right now, look, they're almost nothing. Well, these days with international flights and so on and so forth, one case can start the ball rolling, and here we go again. What's protecting, for example, here, United States, is we've got a real system of inoculations, of vaccinations of polio, which is, it's like there's no problem. You go to the doctor, you've got your shots, polio included, and so on, and you're home free. And that's basically what the whole effect of this is, and the goal around the world, and there's still 2 or 3 countries that still have cases, is to start to be able to inoculate everybody, to vaccinate everybody. And it's so simple. Just take a little lump of sugar or something like that, and that's it. It's not a big deal, but it's a big deal if you get it.
This is clearly a disease where even if you stamp out 99.99999%, it doesn't matter. You leave a crack in the door open.
Exactly.
For an outbreak. You either have to go for it or it doesn't matter what the percentage is.
Yeah. So you have to really be very vigilant and try. And so when people say, what can you do? Rotary International have been doing a fantastic job in eradicating polio. And then I've done a couple of concerts for them and spoke on their behalf on the campaign of which is we're almost there, and so on.
Yes, Rotary International has adopted this as their primary mission, is to completely eradicate it, get rid of that 1%. Now, earlier this year, the CDC declared that India is polio-free after 3 years and no reported cases. And India was once considered the epicenter for polio. The CDC also declared 9 other countries in the southeast region of the world as completely polio-free. So what did these countries do to become polio-free in such a short amount of time?
I think it has to be a systematic way of vaccination.
Immunization.
Immunization, right. That's the only thing. That's why the whole thing is so simple, and so that there is no excuse if something like this doesn't happen. There's no excuse.
Now, here's a reason immunization. Immunization is very important because you can get polio even in countries that are not reporting cases and are not infected. As I understand it, you were living in Tel Aviv when you were afflicted, and though there hasn't been a case of polio in Israel for a very long time, it's important to note that experts continue to collect sewage samples in Israel, which are testing positive for the polio virus.
Right.
This is a strain, actually, that's been traced to Pakistan. So for a layman like myself, that feels like the virus is just lying in wait. And the minute we relax on immunizations and hygiene and education, we could just as easily slip backwards again. Or am I being too paranoid here?
No, you're being exactly right. You're not being too paranoid at all. That's exactly. I was about to say, you don't need me in this program. You are so good at this.
No.
You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
Because I'm thinking, well, when we talk about eradicating a disease, and let's just take Israel, for example, no reported cases. So you think, okay, well, the disease is gone. Well, no, it continues to show up in sewage samples. And so if Israel didn't have an aggressive immunization program, we would see outbreaks.
Exactly. So it's all a question of the infrastructure of, the system. If you have a good system of immunization, you're home free. That's all it is.
Now, does the fact that polio has been narrowed down to a few countries really mean anything when, outbreaks could spread in a matter of hours? As a matter of fact, I think in 2013, the largest number of reported cases occurred in previously polio-free areas.
Well, it only means that we have to watch it all the time. And I think that a show just as yours, really helps people to say, listen, not something that has nothing to do with me, because it very well could. As I said before, the stuff travels very easily. Mm-hmm. So, if somebody comes in from a country that may have something like that, you can get it very easily. So, and the thing that saves the United States is because of this system, which is airtight. We have the airtight system, and that's why we are okay. But, other countries that do not, that's the next goal, is to make those countries also airtight. So that if you have something like a sample in a sewage sample and so on, you say, okay, it's terrible, but we are safe. We have protection. We are protected, and that's what this whole thing is about: to continue to have all countries be properly protected. And there is, as I said before, when you get polio, I know that polio usually gets people who are children. It's affected, but sometimes it's affect people who are older as well. Mm-hmm. So this is something very, very serious that we have to watch for.
Absolutely. It's not just a personal quest on your part. You've been a great humanitarian all of your life. There is a part of you that is such a sharing and loving human being, not only generous with your music, but also generous with your time to young musicians who are coming up through the ranks and need to learn the business and to hold on to their love of music despite their commercial successes. And the fact that you joined this mission, I have to believe that there has to be a little bit of frustration here, because I don't, as much as I commend the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news channels, they don't seem to want to give this the appropriate coverage in order to advance the agenda, just so we can get over this little hump. I mean, we're so close. As you point out, we're so close. We're down to 1%. We've identified the 3 or 4 major countries where immunization programs are needed. And if you can take a country that was ground zero like India, where there were so many obstacles to eliminating polio, and have them be polio-free in the course of 3 years, we're talking 36 months, then that should be the role model for every country that is reporting cases today. Now, we're going to take another short break, but stay tuned. We'll be right back with more from Itzhak Perlman. You're listening to the Costa Report. We're fortunate to have Scott Caraccioli with us to explain how the process of making sparkling wines influences a winemaker's approach to making a Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Yeah, it's really a driving factor in terms of style and really kind of making it a little bit more old world. We use all French oak, which is the same thing that we use in our sparkling wines.
So I would imagine that someone who's not making sparkling wines will take a totally different approach.
Yeah, it's a matter of viewpoint when it comes down to when you have a French winemaker making bubbles, you end up with a leaner, more European style of wine. To find out more about Caraccioli wines, visit us at www.caraccioliCellars.com or stop by our tasting room in downtown Carmel, California. That's Caraccioli Cellars, Caraccioli, Cellars, where you have to spell it to drink it.
This is Monterey College of Law Dean Mitchell Winnick inviting you to join my co-host, Law Professor Stephen Wagner, and me for Wagner and Winnick on the Law, each Saturday afternoon from 4 to 5 here on KSCO AM 1080. We will discuss the legal current events that impact our daily lives. Call in and join the discussion starting Saturday, July 12th at 4 p.m.
Hi, registered pharmacist Ben Fuchs here. I've been studying healthy bodies for 35 years, and what I've got to tell you may shock and surprise you, but if you listen up It may change your life. Recently, something called avocado soybean unsaponifiables, a European research review determined that it was beneficial for patients with osteoarthritis of the hip, can help reduce the production of inflammatory agents secreted from the body's defensive immune system. Unsaponifiables are molecules that are found in all vegetation. A class of compounds called sterols is a type of unsap that can help stabilize blood fats and lower blood cholesterol. Unsaps may have anti-inflammatory benefits too. Other unsaponifiables get deposited in the skin and the eyes, where they can help protect delicate tissues from UV rays. Most eye vitamins will contain at least one or two unsaps, like lutein or zeaxanthine. Beta-carotene is a particularly important skin health supporting unsaponifiable that the body can convert into vitamin A. The king of unsaponifiable botanicals is shea butter. While most plants will contain 1 to 2 or maybe 3% unsaponifiables, unrefined shea butter can contain up to 19%. Shea butter has been endowed by nature with powerful sun protection unsaponifiables that indigenous tribes have used for centuries. In the past few years, another African tree has become popular for its unsaponifiable rich fruit. It's called argan, and it's quickly becoming legendary in the world of hair care. Argan oil unsaponifiables were shown to provide protection against hair damage associated with coloring processes and dyes. Other unsaps from argan, including polyphenols and vitamin E, have been touted for their anti-hair loss benefits and for moisturizing and softening hair. Pharmacist Ben here, urging you to go to kscohealth.com to order Beyond Tangy Tangerine, the Healthy Start Pack, and other nutritional supplements that I personally use and recommend. You can purchase these premium quality products at wholesale prices online at kscohealth.com. That's kscohealth.com. I'm the pharmacist that believes that staying healthy and strong is not only about medicine, it's about giving your body the raw materials it needs to do its work. Go to kscohealth.com. Make sure you check out the cool videos too at kscohealth.com. That's kscohealth.com.
Are you a mom? Well, we have a Mr. Mom on KSCO.
Mr. Mom here. On my show about parenting, you'll hear from best-selling authors, psychologists, dog trainers, bail bondsmen, experts you need to know. We laugh, think, and plot about how to scheme our way out of our next parental miscue.
Don't miss the next Mr. Mom program on KSCO, Sundays at 1 p.m. That's Mr. Mom, Sundays at 1 p.m.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and if you're just joining us, our guest today is Itzhak Perlman, who is explaining that when countries commit to an immunization program for polio, they are essentially protecting their citizens from a 100% preventable disease. We can't get rid of the disease itself, but we can certainly arm people against it, and we can certainly eradicate polio once and for all. Now, for listeners who might be wondering what the economic costs are, because I always get questions about this, I read somewhere that it costs less than 60 cents a child to immunize against polio. And more importantly, organizations like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation offer 2-to-1 matching donations to the to Rotary International, who has adopted this as their mission, as we spoke about earlier. And I know that you've produced concerts to raise awareness and donations. So there certainly seems to be sufficient funding to immunize every child, or do I have that wrong?
I think that probably is. I have a feeling that one of the problems is that some people may feel that this is a dangerous thing. Maybe, maybe they're not well aware that this kind of immunization really can prevent something like that from happening. So it's not only the funding, but also the kind of education and awareness that you have to give the people who live in a place where maybe they may not used to an immunization program and so on and so forth. But I think a lot of it has to also do with education and awareness.
Mm-hmm. We have some people in this country who believe that any immunization is bad for a child and might be connected to autism and other diseases. Yes. I hear all kinds of crazy science. I'm a scientist, so it drives me nuts when I'm at a dinner party and I'm in front of a mother who says, well, I'm not immunizing my child against anything. And I have to fill my mouth with food so I don't start screaming at the top of my lungs.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. But, unfortunately, if something happens to somebody like that, then they would probably think about it differently. But, some people have a certain attitude. They say, I'm not doing this for my child. And then, if you have certain countries where you don't have the education, then, you can have somebody, even with all the money in the world, and the availability of the vaccine, it's not going to help if people don't want to do it. So that's another fight that you have to go for, the fight of awareness, social awareness.
But doesn't this have to come from the government down? Isn't this one of those things that the government has to take the lead on?
Probably. But it's all a question of how famous is this disease. It seems to me, and you and me, that when you think about polio, you don't need to talk about it. We know about polio, but maybe certain governments haven't heard about it, or maybe don't take it very seriously. And I think that's basically it. How seriously do you take it, and how seriously do you say this is a problem that we have to solve right now, or something may happen? And unfortunately, unless it really happens, people don't believe in it.
Well, here's the problem: the closer you get to eradicating it, the less interested the press is in it.
Exactly.
It's got an inverse algorithm. You get rid of a disease 99%, and nobody wants to cover it because it looks like it's already taken care of. What we forget is it can come back in a second.
Yes, it's misleading. It's totally, the 1% is misleading. So,
very much so. Do we have enough funding to immunize all children throughout the world, in your view?
I don't think. I don't really know, but I'm sure that we do.
Well, if Bill and Melinda Gates are matching donations 2-to-1, I have to believe we and it's 60 cents a child. If we do the math, it looks like there's plenty of funding.
Yeah, I think it's the awareness and the system. We have to set up the system better, and that I don't know if money can buy that. I think it seems to me that money can buy almost anything, and I know health it cannot buy, but certainly in this particular case, it can buy protection against a terrible, terrible disease.
Now, in terms of the cost to arrest or treat a deadly outbreak, the CDC estimates that an outbreak would put 200,000 children at risk every single year. So this is a clear case, in my view, of spending very little to preempt an outbreak now, or the regret that comes from allowing something we could have cured continue to go on and bearing a much larger economic cost down the road.
Absolutely. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. You've got to do it.
So what's holding these other countries up, in your view? Is it cultural? Are they afraid of immunization?
Could be. It could be culture. It could be a lack of awareness. It could be a lack of the intensity of the problem. My God, we've got to do it right now. Maybe there's a lack of this kind of awareness. It's got to be. Because this whole thing is so simple to do, and as you said, not very expensive, and so on. So it's a lack of the feel that this is something that's got to be done or else. And unfortunately, if you have an outbreak, when it's too late, then maybe there'll be more awareness and more feel that we've got to do this. And let's hope that it doesn't need, we don't need that kind of an outbreak to let governments know that this is really something that we should do right now to make sure that there is nothing, that there are no outbreaks of this disease.
Yeah, we're such an alarmist society. We're so reactive. When we have the opportunity to preempt, and this is, I'm an evolutionary biologist. I will tell you that one of the greatest assets that humans have developed over millions of years, right, of evolution is the ability to look ahead and then to fashion an action in the present to avoid a danger and a threat. We're the only animal that's capable of doing that. There are no other creatures capable of doing it. And yet, when faced with something like this, where we're down to the last 1%, as you have pointed out on your website, as a matter of fact, we successfully eradicated smallpox. We were able to do that. Now we're down to the last 1%, and everyone's acting as though it could never come back with a vengeance. And it's an incorrect thought, and the media isn't covering it, and we don't seem to be able to push ourselves over that finish line and make medical history again.
Well, listen, I mean, let's hope that we have to continue to talk about it. The more we talk about it, the better it is, I think. I mean, even if you get 3 or 4 people who can say, listen, I got to do something about this, it's worth it. And so, I mean, I'm an eternal optimist. I'm just hoping, because there is so little to finish. We have so little to go before the whole thing is eradicated. I would like to be optimistic in this.
Well, based on the model that we have for the success in India, I have to say that polio can be eliminated as a danger in a matter of months and years. Just a matter of a couple of years, we could completely extinguish this disease, and then we will not have to ever talk about it again.
Absolutely.
And that should be our goal. Absolutely, and I commend you for joining Bill and Melinda Gates and Rotary International and joining them in this crusade. We have very little to go to push over that finish line, and it's my honor to do a program today dedicated to this disease, because I speak at a lot of Rotary functions, and one of the things that the Rotary offers its speakers is every time you speak and they have thousands and thousands of chapters throughout the United States, but every time you speak at a Rotary function, the Rotary makes a donation to curing polio on behalf of the speaker, and so that's another way that they collect donations and they contribute. And we have to take our last scheduled break, but stay right where you are. We'll be right back after these important messages from our sponsors. You're listening to the Costa Report.
The crisis in the Ukraine is the latest global conflict to pit the United States against Vladimir Putin's Russia. While the Cold War may have ended, U.S.-Russia diplomacy is here to stay. Understanding this volatile new era is not easy. For many years, experts have been trying to explain Russia's new leadership, but cracking the inner circle has remained elusive until now. The American Program Bureau represents some of the most knowledgeable and prominent Russian insiders who are available to speak to your organization. Experts such as Mikhail Gorbachev, former leader of the Soviet Union and master architect of modern-day Russia; Vladimir Posner, the dean of Russian journalism; Andrei Kozyrev, the first foreign minister under Boris Yeltsin; and Pavel Palashchenko, chief advisor for 25 years to Gorbachev, are available to speak at your next event. No Speakers Bureau offers greater insights into how Russia impacts our economy, our world, and our lives. To schedule these esteemed leaders for your next event, contact the American Program Bureau at 800-225-4575 or apbspeakers.com.
Hi, I'm Amy Tobin, cookbook author and culinary expert. Strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries. Dole has a bounty of berries ripe for the picking. Fresh berries are not only delicious, but some of the most powerful disease-fighting foods available. Researchers have found that berries have some of the highest antioxidant levels of any fresh fruits. So add a handful or two of your favorite berries to your next meal and enjoy their nutritional benefits and natural sweetness in all of your dishes, from salads to desserts and everything in between. For fresh tips and ideas from Dole's berry experts, visit berries.dole.com. And be sure to check out the pages of mouth-watering recipes. Whether it's a sweet and savory blueberry cranberry chicken salad or a simple strawberry sorbet, Dole has the perfect berry to inspire your next berrylicious dish.
Howdy, folks. This is Randy the Realtor, letting you know the 2014 County Fair slogan is Sow it, grow it, show it. But don't forget to bring it to the county fair so you can win a ribbon. If you need to buy or sell a home, call me, Randy the Realtor, and I'll make it an award-winning experience. Give me a call at 831-566-2590. That's 831-566-2590. or visit my website at aptoshomefinder.com.
So what about organic food? It's way more expensive than the regular non-organic variety, but is it really better for you? So it would seem. After all, most of us who think about it would probably choose food grown without pesticides, hormones, fertilizers, and other chemicals. We are very excited about our guest on the upcoming KSCO special. 20 years ago, Jordan Rubin was a 19-year-old with severe, horrendous medical problems, too numerous to mention in this promo. He was expected to die, but didn't. Instead, he decided to completely overhaul his diet, taking guidance from the Bible, and cured himself of all the diseases and conditions, and went on to become a very successful organic food entrepreneur and best-selling author of The Maker's Diet and many other popular books on food and nutrition. Jordan Rubin and Beyond Organic is a story you will want to hear on the next KSCO special this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, right here on AM 1080 KSCO.
Tune in to The Dave Allen Show every Sunday at 4 for an eclectic mix of guests, music, and hot talk that spins towards the positive. So if you're tired of confrontational bickering on the radio, take a step to the positive. Take a step with The Dave Allen Show every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. on KSCO AM 1080.
Welcome back to the Costa Report. I'm Rebecca Costa, and today our guest is Itzhak Perlman. Now, Mr. Perlman, I can't let you go without taking this opportunity to thank you for many years of classical music that have meant so much to me and also our listeners. And among the scores you have immortalized is the theme to Schindler's List, which you worked on with composer John Williams. That has to be one of the most moving pieces of all time. So when you receive a score like this, how much of your own experience went into your treatment of that?
Well, when John Williams called me up and he said to me, "Listen, I'm writing this script for this film called Schindler's List," I had actually, to be honest with you, not heard that story. Mm-hmm. And so he told me about that story, and of course, a lot of my relatives, my grandmother, grandfather, and son, they were all victims of the Holocaust. So, I only had my immediate parents who came to Israel before this whole thing happened. And so I immediately knew what the whole thing was about. But it wasn't just that was the story that was affected, that affected the way I heard the score, but it was the score itself. And John Williams did such an amazing job on giving the flavor of that music that right now I must tell you that when I go all over the world, it doesn't matter whether it's the United States or Asia or South America, the only thing that people really want me, the only request that they give me is to play the theme from Schindler's List, which means that this whole thing, it only goes to prove you how international music is and how this thing is so moving. It's such a great piece, and I'm just very, very lucky that I'm associated with it.
Well, it somehow you were able to take what John had written and personalize it. There is so much emotion in your music. And actually, in preparation for our interview today, I watched an early YouTube video of you playing Schindler's List, and I was just brought to tears all over again. I don't know if I'm just emotional, but it's very hard. It was very hard to just listen to it without and even if it hadn't been associated with the movie. This is what I think you did. Was that the music is, although it's wonderful and it was a privilege to be associated with that movie, that film, even if it hadn't been, in and of itself, it was such a beautiful composition, and you had played it so beautiful. John Williams is known as a musician's composer, and I think I first understood what that meant when I happened to be a guest in his home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I had a second home up the road from his. Mm-hmm. And while I was at his home, I happened to see just a regular book, a piece of literature that was cracked open. And in the margins of the book were scrawled tiny notes right next to the words. And it was the first time that I understood that a true musician or composer hears music in everything, even in the written word. What was your experience working with John like?
Well, first of all, John there cannot be a nicer person than John. John is a sweetie pie. He's such a wonderful guy. But the thing is that he's probably one of the last composers that actually writes his music with pencil.
Yes.
Because a lot of composers, they're all right now with computers and so on. There are so many fantastic programs. But John is an old-fashioned composer. He writes everything out and so on. What amazes me, about him is that how he is like a chameleon, that he's able to take a theme of a subject and make it into something so amazing. We talk about geisha. So that sounded so Asian and so on. You talk about Schindler's List, it sounded so European, so Eastern European, and so on and so forth. So whatever he takes, he's able to do it. When I did this inauguration for Obama, he wrote this amazing piece that was so quote American. And
yes.
So he's able to do it. He's just a fantastic artist.
He seems to know the culture and grab the spirit of that culture. And the word I always use is that it's very authentic. And I think the two of you together, where he's coming from a very authentic place, and needless to say, your music is certainly has that characteristic, and people are always using the word authentic. I think the two of you collaborating was just it always produces such an amazing result, and I would imagine there's a good friendship there.
Very good friendship, and it's just that whenever we talk, we basically talk the same language. When it comes to music, it's the same language. And when you hear John's music, whether it's E.T. or Schindler's List, it's always memorable. And that's the deal of a fine composer, that when you leave the movie theater, you can actually remember what you heard as the music, because the music is, for me, it's such an important part of any film, is what happens in the background, which is really, and one of the things about Schindler's List that's so amazing to me is not only where the music was, but where the music was not. Because
yes.
You see, there were so many silences there that were so as meaningful as the music itself.
Yes, so, where you wind up pulling back. But John does that too in his music. He seems to know the moment to pull back and to show restraint. And it's something that you do with your violin as well. There are moments where you really lean into it, but there are moments that are very delicate where you seem to show tremendous restraint. And I think that in so many ways, that's just wisdom and experience speaking.
I suppose. I don't know. I always call it the censor. Want to know how much it's too much and how much it's too little, and just do it right.
Yes.
It's like,
that's experience, though. That's something that takes a lifetime to learn. Now, unfortunately, we are all out of time today, but I do want to thank you for taking time to be with us and for working tirelessly on behalf of children and parents everywhere in the world. Thank you so much, Mr. Perlman.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
If your station is leaving us after this hour and you have a question or a comment to make about today's interview with Itzhak Perlman, you can email me at RebeccaCosta.com or drop me a note on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're pretty much all over the internet. And if you missed the full interview with Mr. Perlman or any of our other guests, remember you can download previous episodes of the Costa Report from our website, Apple iTunes, Podbean, and our new YouTube channel. And while you're at our website, take a moment to check out our new videos, our book reviews, and photographs, and be sure to pick up your copy of The Watchman's Rattle. All you have to do is click on any image of the book on any of the pages, and it'll take you right over to where you can order it. And you can order a custom dedication and autograph, so the book makes for a very special gift for any occasion. Some of my most treasured possessions are books, which were signed by the author and dedicated to me. A book is really a great gift anytime, but imagine the surprise of the recipient when they open the book and see a custom inscription inside. So go to RebeccaCosta.com and order a copy. Do it right now. It only takes 2 minutes. 100% of the proceeds go toward keeping interviews like the one you heard today with Itzhak Perlman on the air. So not only do you get a page turner that's hard to put down, you also get a custom inscription, and you also support agenda-free journalism, the way journalism used to be. And I long for a day when we get back to that and we don't have multinational corporations driving the agenda of news outlets. That would be a nice thing, I think, and I think we can all get on board. My guest next week is former chairman of the Defense Policy Board, Richard Perl, who'll be here to discuss greater instability in post-war Iraq and Syria and the Ukraine, as well as the recent eruption between Israel and Hamas. I came into the studio today, and one of the news reporters here said, "Is this the beginning of World War III?" And I said, I don't even want to think about that. But we seem to have disturbances occurring all over. And at the same time, and I know that many of us are concerned about that. I know I am. Don't miss the always outspoken Richard Perl next week on the only news program which puts policy ahead of politics. Now stay tuned for another hour of Straight Talk Radio. You're listening to the Costa Report.